This story begins in the kingdom of the dragon, more specifically in the city of Linhai. A giant sphere descended to Earth and began to destroy everything in its path. Countless monsters made their way into reality from the other world, causing humanity to face the greatest calamity it had ever seen. These monsters were very ferocious, some with demon shapes, others with animal forms. Within days, the monsters started massacring the humans. Survivors began hiding, but it was in vain. Although some were afraid, others gathered courage and decided to face these monsters, and luckily, the heavens never abandoned humanity. When all seemed lost, a mysterious mark suddenly appeared on the back of each human's hand, and through it, they awakened a variety of unique occupations. From then on, the era of changing occupations to become hunters was initiated for humanity. Among the many who awakened, there were only 3 people with mythical rank classes. In the United States of America, a human named Alpha awakened the Ghostblade class. In Russia, a guy named Rastif awakened the Hell Dragon Rider class. And in the Frost Nation, a human named Quanjixian awakened the Frost Mage King class. Since mythical rank occupations far surpassed all others, it led to Lighthouse Kingdom, Russia, and Frost Nation surpassing all other countries in their rate of progress to conquer other countries. 100 years ago, a prodigy like them had also appeared once in the Dragon Kingdom. This man was the main expert of the Dragon Kingdom called Asura. He wore powerful armor, and as a weapon he had a sword. The monsters began to emerge from the rift and he prepared to fight. In just 10 years, he created the highest record ever found in China. He started massacring monsters like simple ants, and became the first to make it through the 70th world. However, while he was fighting, the strongest wave of 9th rank monsters invaded the land, and Asura, who had changed class 8 times, died defending against the rift. In other words, he sacrificed himself to protect the Dragon Kingdom. Back in the present day, under the moonlight, in some city there was a man walking down the street, and today was the 100th anniversary of Xiao Luo's heroic death. During the commemorative ceremony held in the capital 2 days ago, all of the best hunters from the Dragon Kingdom appeared to attend. The hooded man passed by a television store, and at the same time, statistics showed that the realm had 12,350,000 awakened this year, which was 11.3% more than last year, and the highest record since the otherworld first descended on Earth 110 years ago. The newsmen informed everyone that 10% of the awakened were currently composed of core hunters, which had greatly surpassed the number of awakened who had been awakened during Asura's birth year. In simple words, they could witness another appearance of the next Asura. At the same time, a thunderbolt descended from the sky and struck a building. In some room of the building, there was a man wearing a blue shirt lying on the bed. This man had pale skin. He was malnourished, and next to the pillow there were some pills. Several system windows appeared and informed the man that the main gate to the other world was about to open. It asked the hunter to prepare. Upon hearing the sound of the system, the man began to open his eyes and saw that a system window appeared in front of him, informing him that the main gate to the other world was about to open. The system again asked the hunter to prepare. Upon seeing this, he couldn't help but remain in shock. He quickly sat down and couldn't help but wonder what was happening. He started looking at the ceiling. He didn't know where he was and remembered having died. At that moment, his head started to hurt. He put his hand on his head, clenched his teeth tightly, and couldn't help but wonder why his head hurt so much. Several memories entered his head. The owner of this body was a simple delivery man whose girlfriend left him after he awakened the most useless class in the world. This man was named Zhang Yu. He had already delayed the payment of his younger brother's medical fees for 2 months. He was a poor person who had awakened as a monster tamer destined to die in the other world. Because he could not pay the medical fees, his younger brother died. He couldn't help but feel useless since he hadn't been able to save his brother or himself. He fell to the ground, grabbed his head with both hands, and couldn't help but wonder whose memories these were. He extended his hand to one side and remained silent. Then he sat on the bed, started looking towards the window, and stayed thinking in silence. He had never thought that he would reincarnate into the body of someone with exactly the same name as him 100 years later. The monster tamer class mainly depended on their pets to fight. Besides leveling up their own level, the growth attribute of their pets couldn't fall behind either. Someone had once analyzed that to nurture a powerful monster tamer, one would need to be at least as rich as an entire nation. For an ordinary person, awakening as a monster tamer would really be bad news. A useless young man, Zhang Yu, who failed in life, ended up taking his own life. He approached the photo of Zhang Yu, started staring at it intently, and remained silent. He grabbed his sweatshirt, stood in front of the mirror and began putting it on. He was the complete opposite of Zhang Yu since he had once been Asura, the strongest awakened in the entire Dragon Kingdom. He started to look at himself in the mirror, bumped his fist with his reflection and began to smile. Now that he had taken control of Zhang Yu's body and had been revived once again, he decided to take on all responsibilities and regrets of him and conquer this world where the weak were at the mercy of the strong. He asked Zhang Yu to take this as a way of thanking him. The main gate to the other world began to open, and the system asked him to prepare. He clasped his hands together and with a determined look asked the system to open the spatial door. A small black hole appeared in front of him, and several seconds later it became larger, and the spatial door began to open. Without hesitating for a second, first he put his hand in, then his foot and entered through the gate. The system did not take long to recognize him as the hunter Asura, who had been disconnected for 36,552 days. He simply remained silent and several system windows began to appear around him. The points that the system awarded him for being offline every second were 70. He had a total reward of 221 million ability power points. The system congratulated him for being the first to defeat a wave of rank 9 monsters. He had completed the mythical rank achievement called A Class of Your Own. As a reward, he obtained a mythic rank treasure called Supreme Divine Decree. The Supreme Divine Decree was automatically activated and he received a 10,000 times increase in ability power points in the other world, both online and offline. The effect was applied to him, and the additional offline rewards were multiplied by 999. Now he had 2,210,000,000 ability power points. Upon seeing that he had quadrillions of ability power points, he couldn't help but be surprised. He thought that the first clear reward for the highest ranked monster wave in the world was really immensely generous. Another system window appeared and he obtained a class reset. The system asked him to choose one of the 7 core classes of mythical rank. He could choose between the classes: Knight, Undead Death Knight, Warrior, Dark Swordsman, Assassin, Shadow Reaper, Priest, Divine Priest, Mage, Hellfire Mage, Archer, Spectral Hunter, and Monster Tamer, Necromancer. He closed his eyes and remembered that he had awakened as an epic class warrior 100 years ago. But the strongest core class in the other world during that time was really the Monster Tamers. The only problem with this occupation was the astronomical amount of ability power needed for both them and their pets to level up, making growth for this occupation immensely difficult. He reached out towards the system window and started to smile. Given that he had reincarnated and had 1,000,000 years worth of offline ability power, the top choice was naturally the Necromancer. A system window appeared and congratulated him for becoming the other world's 4th mystic rank core hunter called Necromancer. He had the advanced class of Monster Tamer. He was somewhat surprised. He started looking at his hand and thought that the initial growth of 100 stars was very strong, something to be expected from a mythical rank class. The Necromancer class was based on magic. It was a mythical rank core class. A Necromancer was a revived messenger from the underworld. He had control over the force of the dead. Only death could excite a Necromancer. This class had a magic attack growth of 25 stars, mana growth of 18 stars, vitality growth of 20 stars, physical defense growth of 18 stars, and magic defense growth of 19 stars. This class had 3 abilities. The first one was called Harvest Souls. When a Necromancer attacks a monster in the underworld, there is a 1% chance that they will harvest the soul of the monster and turn it into their pet. Pets obtained through this method could not be traded and could only be used by oneself or as food to level up other pets. The second skill was called Spectre Evolution. All the pets of a Necromancer could evolve by consuming other pets of the same type. The highest rank to which a pet could evolve was the mythical rank. Although there was no limit to a pet's loyalty, all the pets of a Necromancer could evolve by consuming other pets of the same type. The third and final skill was called Death Reduction. The experience required for all of the Necromancer's pets was halved. The intelligence of an ordinary Monster Tamer's pet was obtained through rare mission rewards, and it was impossible to improve their character. He did not expect that a Necromancer would not only evolve their pets but also be capable of harvesting other monsters and making them their pets. But this was something to be expected from a mythical rank class. A portal began to open in front of him. In his previous life, he had relied on a fast rank class to clear 70 worlds in just 10 years and had become the best hunter in China. He started looking towards the portal and began to smile since he was starting with a mythical rank class in this life. He needed to perfectly clear every last world and become not only the strongest in China but in the entire world. This portal was connected to another zone. Upon crossing the portal, He arrived at the first world of the otherworld, called the Source of Nightmares. The safe zone to which he had been assigned by the system according to his login location was Doomsday Village. Fighting in safe zones was prohibited. The system asked him if he wanted to continue using the identification Asura. He started looking towards the village and decided that his new ID would be 0 since in this life he was destined to surpass Asura's existence, and the only thing that surpassed everything else was 0. He was flying in the air. The portal began to disappear. Doomsday Village was a quite beautiful and modern place. Several seconds later, he descended to the ground. A girl who was behind him clasped her hands together and couldn't help but be surprised to see that this other world felt exactly like the real world. For her, this was very fascinating. The man who was in front of him started looking at the girl and asked them where the monsters were, if it was supposed that the other world was full of monsters. The man who was in front of them and wearing a red jacket started to look at the other man and explained that this was the safe zone and the monsters were outside. A system notification appeared. The first world's mission had been released, and they could see it on the mission panel. The man wearing a red jacket started to walk and couldn't help but be surprised to see that the mission had begun just like that. He didn't know if they needed to prepare something first. The man who was behind him started looking around and asked the others if they wanted to form a team. Zhang Yu opened the mission panel. The first world mission called Source of Nightmares appeared. When darkness covered the earth, monsters that were in a deep sleep below awakened and the world eventually plunged into calamity. As the sole survivor, he had to break the pattern of apocalypse and overcome multiple calamities and crush the darkness. According to the World Mission 1, he had to kill a total of 1,000 monsters in the first world. And according to the World Mission 2, he had to collect a total of 10 silver coins by killing monsters or completing missions. Once he had completed the previous missions, he could activate the teleportation tunnel to the boss instance of the first world. One had to defeat the boss and advance to the second world. He closed the system window with his finger and came to the conclusion that the normal design of the other world hadn't changed much. First, he decided to buy some equipment before doing missions. Several hunters went to an equipment shop. The shop owner named Chelsea, who had his arms crossed, welcomed them all and asked what they needed. Zhang Yu and several hunters approached the shop and started looking at the items. It didn't take long for him to realize that the system's equipment shop was also the same as before. It could only provide some basic and crude items. Even the best equipment they had was only 1 star. Chelsea didn't take long to notice that he wasn't satisfied. He approached him, and with a serious look explained that his small shop could still provide higher quality equipment. But the only drawback was that they required a few more copper coins. Zhang Yu started to look at the shop owner and remained silent. And just before he could finish speaking, he took out a bag with 100 copper coins and asked the shop owner to give him a 1-star magic staff. Chelsea handed him a magic staff and asked him to take good care of his magic and also to come back soon. Zhang Yu grabbed the magic staff with both hands and remained silent. Seeing this, the other hunters nearby couldn't help but be shocked. With a confused look, a hunter wearing a blue shirt explained to Zhang Yu that the newbie welcome back had only given them a total of 100 copper coins. He couldn't believe that he had already spent all of them. The hunter wearing a green shirt extended his hand to one side and explained to Zhang Yu that this was true. A 1-star magical item couldn't add much attack power either. Instead of buying a 1-star weapon, it would have been better for him to buy an entire set of raw items. According to him, it wasn't worth it at all. Zhang Yu took the magic staff, turned his back on everyone, started walking away from them and thanked them for the advice. A girl with black hair started pointing at the sky with her finger. She remembered that only weapons with a higher number of stars could be refined. She asked the other hunter if in this case it wouldn't increase the attack power. The hunter began to look at her and explained that refining weapons required skill power, and it could only be obtained through missions to cultivate monsters with a low drop rate. There wasn't even enough of something so valuable to level up. No one was going to use it to refine a 1-star magic staff, and if they did, they must be crazy. While Zhang Yu was walking away, 2 hunters started talking among themselves. With a smile, one of them thought he had already spent every cent and didn't have any defensive power left. He concluded that definitely in the future he was going to suffer. The other hunter started laughing out loud. He didn't know where the bumpkin Zhang Yu had come from. He was completely ignorant and had absolutely no experience. Whether here or outside, it was impossible to do anything without money. Zhang Yu began to distance himself from them. For a normal newbie hunter, it really wasn't worth spending all the money on 1-star equipment. He started looking at the magic staff and thought that the skill power obtained by normal hunters when cultivating monsters was very limited, so it simply wouldn't be possible for them to afford refining 1-star equipment. This magic staff was called Raging Inferno. It had a rank of 1 star. It was level 0, but it was refinable and had a magic power of 5 points. He started to smile, extended his hand towards the magic staff, making it start to shine. It was a pity that the last thing he lacked now was ability power. A system window appeared and explained to him that when one spent an ability power point on refining, there was a 10% chance of increasing the green attribute. The higher the attribute, the greater the cost of refinement and lower the chances of success. The first refinement was successful, and the system asked him if he wanted to refine again. He started staring at the magic staff and with a smile, answered yes. The second refinement was also successful, and the system asked him again if he wanted to refine once more. He asked it to continue without stopping. The system began refining the magic staff, causing it to start floating in the air and begin emitting a powerful light. Several seconds later, a system window appeared and informed him that the refinement had been a success. This equipment had already been upgraded to the highest level, after 132 individual refinements with a total of 985 ability power points spent. Now the magic staff had the golden attribute, and it was now called Scorching Pioneer Magic Staff. He didn't take long to realize that refining 132 times showed the true power of having quadrillions of ability points. He extended his hand towards the magic staff and its status window appeared. It had a magic power of 26 points. It could grant 2 intelligence points to the user. It had an ability called Scorch. Every time the user attacks, it will inflict a burn state on the enemy for 3 seconds. The enemy will lose 20 health points per second. This equipment was a magic staff born from furious flames that was going to reduce all enemies to ashes. He picked up the magic staff and couldn't help but start smiling because now the preparations were complete. Next, it was time to put on a good show. He had the mythical rank class called Necromancer. Still, he could change class once more. He was level 0, had 0 experience points, had a physical defense of 18 points, magic defense of 19 points, vitality of 200 points, mana of 180 points, intelligence of 12 points, and agility, mental strength, stamina, and physique. All the hunters went to the first world called the Origin of Nightmares. This world was located in a forest, and here is where the nightmares of the novice began. At the same time, a monster in the shape of a rat appeared. 2 hunters started attacking it, taking away several HP points from it. The hunter who carried a sword launched a powerful attack towards the monster, but it blocked it without much effort using its sharp claws. It got enraged and with a murderous look, prepared to attack. Upon seeing that the monster had blocked the attack, the hunter couldn't help but be terrified. He didn't know what rank this monster was. It had so much health that it was impossible to do significant damage to it. The monster attacked the hunter using its sharp claws, but he grabbed his sword, jumped to one side, and dodged the attack at the last second. And it didn't take long for him to realize that even a hit from it could be deadly. At that moment, a powerful golden light appeared, and someone launched a powerful attack towards the monster, which hit it squarely in the chest, taking away 55 HP points. The 2 hunters looked back, and when they saw what their eyes were seeing, they couldn't help but be shocked and start wondering what was happening. Someone had activated the burn effect of the Scorching Pioneer Magic Staff, and had launched a powerful attack towards the monster, creating a curtain of smoke. Several seconds later, once the smoke curtain disappeared, it could be seen that the monster was lying on the ground and had lost its life. The person who had attacked it was none other than Jiang Yu. He defeated a level 1 mutated giant rat. As a reward, the system granted him 2 experience points and 10,000 ability points. A buff of 10,000 times increase in ability points had been applied. While the magic staff was shining, he began to look at the monster's corpse. He was a mythical rank hunter with maximum attribute enhancements, as well as maximum level equipment. Ordinary hunters needed to form a team to kill the mutated giant rat, but he could kill it with a single shot. The hunter who carried a sword started looking at Jiang Yu and remained silent. He couldn't help but be surprised and start wondering what kind of insane damage this was. The blonde girl who was in his team noticed that Jiang Yu had all gold equipment. She asked the hunter if he could be an experienced hunter. He responded to her that this was impossible since no one would have enough ability points to refine a newbie magic staff at the beginning of the game. They started talking among themselves and came to the conclusion that there was no way to avoid it. According to them, he was a big shot. Jiang Yu put his hand under his chin and came to the conclusion that these level 1 monsters gave very little experience. He needed to kill monsters that were at a higher level than him to maximize the gain of experience. In the first world, the Origin of Nightmares, besides the low-rank giant mutated rats, there were also poisonous spiders between levels 3 and 4, armored scorpions between levels 3 and 7, frenzied wild boars between levels 8 and 9. And finally there was the level 10 boss of the first world called the Frenzied Wild Boar King. He started looking to one side and decided that right now, the best option was to hunt level 3, and above monsters in the abandoned factory. He put his hands inside the pockets of his jacket and started walking towards the abandoned factory. The hunter and his friends appeared. He extended his hands to the sides and with a smile advised him to form a team since they had heals, tanks, and DPS. The huntresses prepared to seduce him. The blonde woman started touching her butt, called Zhang Yu handsome and asked if he could carry them for a bit. The woman wearing mage clothes began touching her breasts, and with a seductive look told him that she was a priest and could give him heals. Zhang Yu approached them and with a serious look rejected their offer. Seeing this, they began to feel fear and apologized to him. He turned his back on them and started to walk away. They simply stood there looking at him in silence. The hunter started to look at Zhang Yu and with a terrified look asked them if they had felt that just now, Zhang Yu's aura was even more terrifying than that of the monsters. The priest put her hand near her mouth and with a surprised look responded to him that yes. When looking a little more closely, they saw that he was heading towards the abandoned factory. They had heard that all the monsters there had high levels and were extremely dangerous. They didn't know if he was thinking of fighting them all alone. A big shot was a big shot after all. They didn't like taking the normal path like the rest of them. Several minutes later, as he approached the abandoned factory, Zhang Yu came across several mutated giant rats. One of them opened its mouth and prepared to attack. He drew the magic staff, began to advance towards the monsters and started attacking. Without much effort, he defeated a level 1 giant mutated rat and 3 level 3 highly poisonous spiders. As a reward, the system granted him 24 experience points and 100,000 ability points. He began to stare at the corpses of the monsters, and several system windows appeared to congratulate him for leveling up. His vitality increased by 30 points, his mana by 12 points, and he obtained 6 free attribute points. Currently, he was level 2 and needed an additional 250 experience points to reach the next level. While he was distracted, a highly poisonous spider appeared above him. It opened its mouth and prepared to attack, but luckily he reacted in time. He started pointing the magic staff towards the spider's mouth, causing it to start glowing. He attacked the monster, creating a great explosion, ending its life in the process. Thanks to this, he leveled up to 3. His vitality increased by 30 points and his mana by 12 points, and the system awarded him free 6 attribute points. He currently needed 1,000 experience points to reach the next level. On the way to the abandoned factory, he encountered more monsters, but defeated them all without much effort. Now there was a mountain of corpses behind him. A system window appeared and congratulated him for unlocking the first skill slot and obtaining the initial skill called Tiny Fireball. He opened his status window and while navigating, he was somewhat surprised, as he never thought that the reward for leveling up from mythical rank hunters would be 6 times greater than that of ordinary hunters. Even by just leveling up 3 levels, he had already obtained up to 18 free attribute points. He started to touch the window of the system with his finger, and he came to the conclusion that the early growth path of a monster tamer was the same as that of a mage. Currently, he had an intelligence of 8 points, agility of 5 points, and mental strength of 5 points. He needed to reduce his casting time and maintain constant damage output while improving his agility. He opened the skills slot and equipped the initial ability called Tiny Fireball, which could be upgraded. As for the initial ability, normal hunters with limited ability points usually wouldn't waste their points on improving it since it didn't have much power. Thinking about this, he couldn't help but start to smile because the last thing he lacked in this world was ability points. He touched the skill and with a smile thought that it was time to max it out. First, he spent 10 ability points and the damage of the skill increased to 112%. Then he spent another 10 ability points and the damage of the skill increased again to 114%. In total, he spent 50 ability points, and the Tiny Fireball skill went from rank D to rank C. It transformed into Medium Fireball. Its damage increased to 140% and gained a special effect that increases burn damage by 6% each second. Zhang Yu started to look to the side and couldn't help but start smiling since this wasn't bad at all. An initial skill of maximum rank could reach a damage stat of 140%. A system window appeared to congratulate him as the Fireball had evolved into Ultra Fireball. It had reached the highest possible grade for his current class rank. He should continue upgrading after performing the second class change. He stayed browsing through the system window for several minutes, then he opened the mission panel and with a smile thought that with this pace of progress, regardless of the result, he should be able to reach level 8 once he finished the first 2 world missions. It was going to be enough once he challenged the final boss and completed the first cleanup of the first world. While he was distracted, he began to hear someone's voice. When he looked to the side, he saw a giant door and couldn't help but start wondering if there was someone inside. Without hesitating for a second, he placed both hands on the door and started to open it. Inside, there was a hunter named Carl who had lost a leg and was very injured. Zhang Yu entered inside, approached Carl, started looking at him intently and came to the conclusion that apart from the fact that players' deaths were real, there was no difference between this world and a normal game since it had dungeons, missions, and NPCs. The reality was that Carl was an NPC. Carl panicked and explained to him that his wife and children had been killed by monsters. He asked him if he could help him kill those despicable scorpions. And with this, the storyline was activated, and the system asked him if he wanted to accept the mission called Exterminate the Scorpions. Zhang Yu opened the system window, and while navigating through it, thought that the equipment obtained from completing NPC missions was much better than what one got from killing monsters. Since he only had a magic staff, this mission was worth doing. The details of the mission appeared. This was a normal mission and had a difficulty level of 10. He had to clear the abandoned factory of all armored scorpions and kill the leader called the Armored Scorpion King. As a reward, he would obtain 500 experience points, 1 silver coin, 300 ability points, and 1 random star equipment. While he was observing the details of the mission, something started to move, and it didn't take him long to notice this. Looking to one side, he saw that there were several destroyed houses inside the abandoned factory. It didn't take him long to realize what was happening, and with a smile came to the conclusion that there weren't just monsters here. At that moment, several eyes of various monsters that were hidden began to shine. He started looking at the monsters, and although his priority right now was to complete the mission of medium-ranked monsters from the first world, he couldn't waste this opportunity since it had been a while since he had seen armored scorpions. Several armored scorpions stopped hiding and appeared. They were physical type and normal level 5 monsters. They had a vitality of 290 points, physical attack power of 40 points, physical defense of 28 points, and magical defense of 25 points. Their skills were guard and charge. These scorpions had mutated due to environmental contamination. Their entire bodies were covered with solid armor, which helped them withstand a great amount of damage. One of the scorpions activated the skill called Guard, causing Zhang Yu's attack effectiveness to decrease. It opened its mouth, started advancing towards him and prepared to attack. Seeing this, he extended his hand backward, used the skill Fireball and prepared to fight. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, then don't forget to subscribe and like the video.